Hi, and welcome to the LED tutorial. This is the website that we'll use to program all of the lights on the Airfield hardware. Now I'm assuming that you've already installed the hardware on the back of your Playfield, that you've labeled all the lights, and that you've created a diagram of where all those lights are. This is a picture that I took of the back of my Playfield and all of the numbers that correspond to where I mounted those lights. I'm going to use that now to create a virtual representation of my Playfield in this tool and then create the light sequences. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is go to the website at editor.ledsec.com and create a free account and then click New Sequence. Type in a title. I'm going to be doing Monster Bash, so I'll call it Monster Bash. My description is my cool Monster Bash light sequence. Now I've taken a picture of my Playfield of the front of it with my phone, and here we're going to upload that. This is a 4 megabyte file. It doesn't have to be that big, but it can be. There we are. Looks great. And you've noticed that I've cropped the image in my photo editing tool, so it's just the Playfield that I'm uploading. That's just going to make it a little bit easier to see just the details that I want. So once that's done, we're done with that step. Now if you look at the top of the screen here, we've got 4 steps to the process. We've got info, layout, which is next, then comes sequencing, and then we're pretty much done. So I'm going to hit continue, and we're on to the layout phase. This is where we tell the software where all of the inserts are, or where all of the lights are. So that's sort of the same thing. At the top of the Playfield here, you'll see we have some options we can play with. We can change the size of the LED. In case we get a bunch of them that are really close, you might actually need to go down to the tiniest size. I typically work at the small size. You can change the way that the image is fit inside the box. You can make it grayscale. You can dim it down. It helps to see the LEDs once you're on there with these 2 modes. And a really cool feature is this back view, which you can see better if I drag some LEDs on here. So let's go ahead and just pretend that these LEDs go on this little strip right here. Now if I hit back view, it flips the Playfield, and it does a simulated back of the Playfield image even. So it takes the front of the Playfield image and actually mirrors that and fades it way down. So this is actually really handy, especially if, like me, you're working off a picture of the back of the Playfield. So I can now work on the back based on a photo of the front. Another thing to notice is that when I move these LEDs around, lines are drawn between some of them. And these are the 2 members of a pair of LEDs. Now you might remember from when you installed the hardware, all LEDs come in pairs. Every wire has 2 on the end, and they have to be positioned in inserts that are close to one another. We do this in case you're starting here and designing your sequence and then installing the hardware based on the sequence that you create. This is just a way to remember, okay, members of a pair should be 4 to 5 inches, no more than 4 to 5 inches apart. Okay, so it's time to start placing my LEDs. I'm going to look at my diagram, and I know that my first LED goes on Wolfman's drums. The second LED goes on Dracula's guitar. The third goes on Creech's saxophone, and the fourth goes on Elvira's microphone. Now the tricky part here is I'm working on a picture of the back, so I want to make sure that it looks correct on this view. But it's not always easy to see the inserts so well on this side, so I'm constantly flipping back and forth. I just want to remember that when I go ahead and place them, that I don't place them here mirroring what I see on my image. I want to make sure that it's correct on the back view. One last thing that I should mention is, obviously, these are all of your control lamps up here. This is the main bank, all 64 of those. And then we have these fuchsia squares here, and these are the GIs. These aren't numbered because all GIs operate on the same brightness and the same circuit. So you can just drag any GI to any insert, and it'll function correctly no matter what bulb you actually use on the hardware. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and start dragging all of my LEDs into place, and it should take me about 5 minutes. Obviously, where you place these is important to you when you're making your light sequences, but they don't have to be perfectly on top of the inserts for any other reason because you've already placed the lights. This is just for your own use in being able to visualize your sequences. So in my case, I used all but one strand of light, so I have 2 control lamps left over, and I'm ready to go. So I'm going to hit continue, and we're on to the sequencing phase. So we've broken sequences down into component parts. The full thing is called a sequence, and that's the 2-minute, 3-minute long thing that plays and then it repeats endlessly forever until the end of time. That's your sequence. Your sequence is broken up into multiple phases. So imagine that you have the first part of your sequence, the first phase of your sequence, which is just a bunch of lights doing various chase patterns. And then that ends after about a minute, and you have a second phase where the whole playfield does something else. Maybe it does a full wipe where all of the lights turn on from top to bottom, and then they turn off from top to bottom. And then maybe you have another phase where it's this all of the lights just increase in brightness and then decrease in brightness. So we call those phases. Now each phase is broken into sets of LEDs. So probably best just for me to go ahead and show you what I mean. So let's take this layout here and let's create our first phase. It's already been created for us. We have this phase. We're in phase 1. If we want to create another phase, we would click this plus sign. But right now we're just going to work on phase 1. Let's ignore this section right here, although it's important. We'll come back to it. Down here we have our sets. So this is where we create our sets of LEDs that we're going to create various chase patterns for. So our first set we're going to say is these lights down here where we have the monsters and their instruments. And let's create a nice chase sequence here where there's just a light that goes across, and maybe it's mirrored on the bottom along here. So all we do is we click on, we're in our first frame of this set, and we're going to click lights that we want to be included in that frame. And we want those 2 to be turned on. Now we've clicked them, so they're now part of set 1. So you can see they share the color. They're red, just like set 1 is. And if we want to change that color, we can click that, and we can make it a blue or a green, but we'll keep it red for now. They've also been turned on. If we want to turn them off, or maybe we didn't mean to turn them on, we just click them again, and they turn off. But they remain a part of that set. So I'm going to turn those on for the first frame, and then I'm going to add a new frame by clicking the plus sign. It's going to duplicate the frame that was selected and make a new one. So I'm going to turn these lights off for the second frame and turn on the lights for this next frame. And then I'm going to continue doing that for all of the lights in this set. And we're done. Now I can preview this by making sure loop is on. Then I can click the play button here, and there is my very first chase sequence of this master sequence. Our very first chase pattern, I should say. So there we have, that's set 1, and currently that will just play forever. So let's stop that, and let's make a new set. We're going to click this button right here, add a new set. Now you'll get this note here. You can only animate the brightness and intensity of the lights, making them get brighter and dimmer in single set phases. So I'm just going to hit OK. That's fine. I don't need to animate the lights. I'll do that in my next phase. So here I've made a second set, and I'm going to make this set maybe these 4 lights here along the edges in these inside and out lanes. So I'm going to create the first frame of that set. I'm going to hit plus, make my next frame, again, and again, and I'm done. Now I have that set playing. Now what's cool is that that set is just 4 frames long. There's only 4 lights in it. And the other set had 6 frames in it. So let's hit stop here. I don't want to preview that set anymore. I want to preview the whole phase. So let's hit the play button up here next to phase 1, and I'll get to see what they look like together. And you can see that they offset properly, that they loop on their own independently, and they continue to play forever. There's a faster way to do this. I'm going to go ahead and make another set here, And I'm going to work with these 5 lights right here that go along the outlanes, or the orbit. And you can see down here we have F to duplicate frame and E to add empty frame. So without going over here to click plus every time, I can just work over here in the Playfield. So let's go ahead and add these 2 lights to the set. And I'm going to hit F, which created a new frame, duplicating my current one. And then I'm done. And I can just preview that. That looks good. Maybe I want that one to go back and forth. So let's go all the way to the end here. And then I'll hit E to make another frame without any lights in it. E again for an empty frame. And then we're done with that. So now they should go up and down. Looks like we have a blank frame in there. So where is that? You can also use shortcut keys to browse through your frames in your set with the A and D keys. You'll see those if you look up here, mouse over that. You'll see your shortcut keys there. You got your D and your A. The S key is the play pause. Shortcut keys are very handy. So here's my blank frame. I don't want that. So I'm going to select frame 9 and hit delete active frame. Now, oh, much better. Now they're ping-ponging back and forth. Let's add another set. I'm going to have these lights come on all at once, and then decrease like that. Another set. Let's make this just go up. Pretty simple. What are we going to do with Frankenstein now? Add a new set. Let's make a light go around and around him. Let's go there, 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 there. But this inner one, we're not going to include that one with this set because I want this light to go around and around and be independent. And I want this one to flash on and off with a different set. So let's just include that one with a new set there, and we'll include that one in the same set. So those two will oscillate back and forth like that. Whereas I want Frankenstein just to do this cool circular pattern. Now I have these 3 tiny little phantom flip lights that I'm going to throw into another set. I'm going to just do that there. And then I'm going to make another set with these last ones at the top. And then a new set with these guys. And another set with this lightning bolt and this guy. And then another set with just these last 2 guys at the bottom. Done. Oh, yeah, that's actually it. So I hit play, and looks good. So let's go back to my phase, hit play at the top there, and all my lights are going. Oh, I forgot to animate my Dracula lights. Let's hit stop. Go back to my sets, and I should have noticed that. So anything with a white border means it hasn't been included in any set yet. So let's go ahead and make a set for our Dracula coffin inserts. That looks nice. There we go. Ah! Alright, so there is a problem here. You can see that these lights along the outside, they're going up, but they're not finishing their loop. They're not coming all the way back down. And that takes us back to this box right here. This is where we control how fast the lights go in this phase and how long we stay on this phase. So this field right here is how long each frame of this phase stays lit. The default is 100 milliseconds. You can go down to I would say around 25. You could try faster than that, but The hardware is going to have a hard time playing things any faster than about 25 milliseconds per frame. But 100 milliseconds looks pretty good usually. By the way, the website will play as fast as your system will play. So if you start doing really fast frame rates, like 25 millisecond frames, you probably won't get a fair representation on the screen of what that looks like. You're going to have to design it on the screen and then import it into the hardware and actually see how fast it actually looks. Anyway, we'll stick to 100 milliseconds for now. But this is what I wanted to talk about. This is what controls how long we stay on this phase. This right here is how many times the first set loops before the phase is over. So we don't control the length of the phase in terms of time, because usually there's one set that we want to have a nice clean ending to before we progress to the next phase, and we just designate that as set 1. We say we want to loop through set 1 X number of times before we progress onto the next phase. So right now it's just set to 1. So every time set 1 here ends, or loops, it resets the entire phase. So you can't notice that when you're just watching phase 1, but if you were to watch a longer set, like this one that we made up here, you would notice it. So let's go ahead and say we want to loop 10 times before progressing to the next phase, which in this case just loops back to the beginning of the phase. Alright, and then we hit play. Now we see these lights up here are ping-ponging correctly. Okay. Nothing else to note here, except I wanted to point out that you can reorder things. If you wanted to reorder your sets, say you wanted, you wanted set 3, which is the longest set, to be set 1, you would just put your mouse over this handle over here and drag it up, and now it's set 1. Well, it is set 1. It's the first set, but it says set 3 because that's the default name. You can actually click this pencil right here to rename set, and we'll call this orbit. And then we can do the same thing for all the others. Monsters. So this is the number of loops of the first set before ending the phase. So I should say the top set, not step 1. Anyway, you get the idea. You can reorder your frames by dragging and dropping, and you can do the same thing with phases. So let's move on to making our next phase. Oh, there's one more thing we need to adjust here. Now, I mentioned earlier that you couldn't animate the brightness levels, but for multi-set phases. But what you can do, and you should usually consider, is setting the overall brightness, especially of your GIs for a phase, every phase. Even phases that have multiple sets, you can set the global brightness for the entire phase. So here's our GIs. You'll remember if you watch the installation video where we put those. The GIs are a little bit brighter than the control lamp, so I'm going to bring that down to about half. And I'm going to leave my control lamps all the way on full bright. Okay, next phase. Alright, so now we're down to a blank set, and you can see our first frame here is highlighted in black, which indicates there's a brightness keyframe on that. So if I wanted to make all of my LEDs fade up and down in this one, which would be kind of fun, let's just go ahead and try that, animate the brightness. Let me go ahead and just add every LED to this set. So I'll just turn everything on. Alright, now I'm going to bring my brightness all the way down, same with the GI, for this first frame, but all of my lights are in this set. So here I'm going to go ahead and make a duplicated frame, and I'm just going to bring my brightness up 1 notch. I'm going to duplicate that frame again by hitting F, up 1 notch, again, up 1 notch, F, up 1 notch. There are 16 levels of brightness, 0 to 15, and perhaps counterintuitively, 0 is bright, it's just not off. Off would be if you actually click the light and turn it off. So there we go. Now I have made a pretty basic phase that consists of a single set, but because it's a single set, I can animate the brightness. And so that lets me do an effect like this. Now what might be kind of interesting is if I go back to the beginning here, the first set, and I bring my GI all the way up, and then I go to the next frame and I bring my GI down somewhat, and I start doing this. I'm hitting D to go to the next frame. There, now my GIs should pulse down. Oh, it looks like I have a bad frame in there. Where's that? There it is. I want the GIs to be on there. There. So there we go. Now the GIs kind of go opposite the control lamps. It might be kind of interesting to see. Alright, so that's that phase. I just want that phase to happen twice, so I'm going to put in the number 2 there, and I want it to happen fast, so I'm going to lower that to 50 milliseconds per frame, and you can see the simulation is a little bit faster, and it's probably going to be even faster than that on the hardware, because not only is this being rendered on a website, but I'm actually running the screen recording software too. Alright, so now I think you got the idea. You can go ahead and make more phases. Like I said, you can rearrange phases if you wanted to by dragging and dropping, and you can add up to 16 phases, and each phase can have unlimited sets. So there's a lot of possibilities here, and obviously the sets can have as many frames as you want. Alright, so now obviously if I go up here to my phases and I click my first phase, because that's where I want to start from, and I hit play, it'll play through the first phase 10 times. And then progress to the second phase. Play that twice, and then loop back to the top, as long as my looping button is clicked up here. So that's the basic idea. I think that covers just about everything, except for this save feature down here. It's not saved until you click the save button, and we do that in case you want to revert. There is no undo functionality right now, so if you wanted to revert, you'd do some work, and then if you made a big mistake, you'd just go to the last time that you saved. But if you prefer to autosave, you just click this, and you can click autosave every minute, or manually hit the save button. I'm going to go ahead and hit continue, and we're pretty much done at this point. Now it says congratulations on making your sequence. Right now it's a private sequence, so it'll show up to me because I'm logged in as me. It's right there, but everyone else won't be able to see it because I haven't made it public yet. So here's my Monster Bash sequence. I'm going to edit it, and I'm going to say make this sequence public. Now anybody can see it, and it just appears there on the front page as the most recent, since we'll be sorting by the date created. And anybody can come right here, hit play, and see the lights go and see if they like the sequence. And if they like it, and they've installed Airfield on the back of a Monster Bash Playfield, and come on, who hasn't? You can go right up here to download. Here's our text file. If you want just to copy and paste that into a text file, you can, or just much easier, hit the download button. Here we get airfield.led. We would just save that onto our SD card and pop that into the Airfield hardware, hit the power button, turn it on, and it plays. Now, if someone else came along and wanted to install this sequence on theirs, they wouldn't know where to put all the LEDs, or at least they could go in and try to guess at it or look at it by turning on the LED numbers here. But that's not the most convenient way to go about it, so they can just click the print button, and they can print out a diagram of where to install them all. If they want the back of the Playfield, they can click flip Playfield and install all of the LEDs according to this chart. They can change the size, whatever looks best. Now, if someone else came along and they liked this, but they wanted to, they had a Monster Bash and they liked the layout, but they want to change the sequence a little bit, they could hit duplicate, and oh, that's not right. There should be a Playfield image there. Why isn't that there? Yeah, we'll have to fix that. Anyway, they can duplicate it. They'll get all of the layout, and they can continue, and they'll get all the sequences. But they can now go ahead and edit it. And they can create their own sets and their own phases, and they can do whatever they want to it, and publish it as their own. But when they do publish it, it'll have a little link back to the original one to give credit. Alright, so I think that's about it. That covers all of the basics and even a little bit more. I really think using this software is a ton of fun, and making changes is really, really easy. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed making it. And if you have any questions, of course, please email us, and I can't wait to see your sequences. Alright, see you on the site.